He has other cancers that is also causing. It causes vaginal cancer, vulvar cancer. Those are cancers of the private part. Even oral cancer. Then mouth. Let me put it as mouth cancer, because those are the places he likes to be. The virus likes to be situated in rough places of the body: the mouth, the vagina, the cervix, and also the penis. But as I said when we were opening, that cervical cancer tends to be the commonest cancer, fourth commonest cancer in the world. But I must let you know that it's the second commonest female cancer in Nigeria, next to breast cancer.
In a lot of low and middle income countries, like we keep saying.
Exactly. If we have been dealing with breast cancer, that is the first. So we should be able to deal with cervical cancer too.
Hello everyone, how are you doing today? You're welcome to another edition of the Habib Eniola podcast. When I made a previous intro, I was actually saying the Just Banter podcast because that's the name of my previous podcast. And we have quite a couple of episodes. And if you haven't seen any one of them, you might want to go to our YouTube channel, scroll through, and then you see quite a couple of episodes because we had a lot of interesting content. In the spirit of Christmas, I'd like to say Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to our days, based on their woke nature and all that. And they would rather say Happy Holidays, Muslims, Christians, and all of that. And we all relate together pretty easy without having to bother about that. Probably because we are conservative and we accept that there are different types of people in the world. And there are too many problems that people have to deal with on a day-to-day basis than to be bothering about what religion one person is or what color is their skin. So one of those problems that we'll be talking about today is the issue of cervical cancer. The issue of cervical cancer is something that the whole world should know about because of how much it affects all of us, both male and female. 660,000 women were diagnosed with cervical cancer in just 2022. Curiously, 94% of those deaths occurred in low and middle income countries. The countries with the highest number of deaths when you talk of cervical cancer are like India. India had the highest number of deaths, followed by China and Indonesia. Cervical cancer is the fourth most common cancer in women. It's preventable and curable if detected early and treated effectively. However, the burden of cervical cancer is greatest in lower and middle income countries where access to public health services are limited. According to the World Health Organization, effective primary, which is HPV vaccination, and secondary prevention approaches, which are screening for and treating precancerous lesions, will prevent most cervical cancer cases. Tonight, we speak to Dr. Modupe Adedeji, a consultant of gynae. Dupe, what is HPV?
Okay, so by that, it's also saying happy holidays.
Right, happy holidays to everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
so tell me.
Yeah, thank you for picking up on me somewhere online. I think that was what happened.
Yes.
So your interest popped up when I talked about cervical cancer somewhat.
Yeah.
If you look
I did see quite a few of your posts on Instagram, and if you're on Instagram and I think Facebook as well,
yeah,
you probably might want to follow the page of Dupsy the Gynae on Instagram. That's Dr. Modupe's Instagram handle and Facebook handle, where she talks about a lot of these issues. And that's where I actually saw a post of hers, like she rightly mentioned. And I decided to reach out and say, you know what, we need to have a conversation. I like talking to doctors. They're arguably, the most intelligent people on earth, especially because the amount of training that they go through, and then for you to be able to deal with all the different dynamics of different human beings day to day. So it's always a pleasure to be able to speak to a doctor.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I wanted to actually start off from that one of my videos that I was angry about the reactions of Nigerians to the human papillomavirus vaccine. So you asked me what is cervical cancer. Cervical cancer, I will start off by saying, is a preventable cancer. And to actually use the word prevent and even possibly curable to cancer, this cancer up to now is actually not something that we have been able to achieve 100%. Because now cancer is one ailment that is still, we're still trying to do so much research on, so that we can actually nick it in the bud as much as we're able to nick ordinary malaria. Now we call it ordinary. But when we identified malaria, we knew then malaria was killing, you know, and all that. So when you talk of cancer, everybody knows that if you have been diagnosed with cancer, it's most likely the end is close and all that. So
Yeah.
this cervical cancer is now one of those cancers that much research has been done, and it has actually been found out that human papilloma virus is a very major causative factor. So cervix is actually that part of the uterus. It's that part that ends the uterus actually, but most of the time we call it the neck of the uterus. It is the place where the womb, uterus and colloquially is called womb, opens up widely that allows the head of the baby to come out. I mean the whole baby to come out. And immediately the baby comes out, it closes up again. So it's a tubular kind of organ, about 3 to 4 cm long, and then it has this dimple-like opening, and you can imagine that's opening to about 10 cm. That's the size, approximate size of the baby, and the whole body of the baby comes out from there. So we now found out, and another thing that is special about it is actually, I want to describe it as the end of the vagina. It's like where the vagina ends up with. And when we want to be very clear, when we are talking about sexual intercourse, every man that goes right into a woman will feel that the penis is touching on the end somehow. And that end looks soft, firm, but eventually will be explained as sweet, So that's where the cervix is located. So we're now talking about that place, the coming cancerous. So, and another thing about it is that it's kind of hidden. It's an hidden organ. And the only time that, and the only time that you know that there's something wrong with it, just like any other cancer, is when you start feeling that there is discharge, continuous discharge coming out from the vagina. And this discharge is not similar to the normal discharge you feel or you see as a woman. This time around, it is watery. It has a very bad odor, and it keeps coming. And at times, when you have sexual intercourse with your husband or your partner, there's always blood. When that has started happening, really, that shows that it is already cancerous. You understand? So yes, it is already cancerous.
So that's the easiest way to tell if you have not done any screening and all that. It's sexual intercourse, you see blood continuously.
Yes.
That is on a consistent basis.
Yes. In fact, the first time you see blood and you cannot explain it, other reasons for seeing blood after a sexual intercourse may just be that, apart from the fact that woman is a virgin, of which is not every virgin through that will experience blood. That's a topic for another day and all that. But when a woman is not sexually ready for that intercourse, so it can be traumatic. That means rape. Then blood can also actually come in. And some other infections like candidiasis, which makes the vagina dry. In short, once the vagina is dry, any penetration will definitely bring blood because it's going to be traumatic. You're going to be bruising on the wall. That's the essence of a woman getting wet during sex. So once the penis goes in, it's supposed to be gliding in and out. So you notice that you are enjoying the whole process, but afterwards, there is blood. Or good at it, let's say there was even the use of condom. Then you see blood all around the condom, then it's quite suspicious. You must definitely start to investigate. There are other reasons where there will be blood. But then, in this time and age, once a woman comes to the hospital and complains of blood after sexual intercourse, we will not allow that woman to go until we have ensured that it is not cervical cancer, before we can let go of the woman. But I'm even letting you know that as soon as she's having watery discharge, foul smelling, and then this blood after sexual intercourse, it is cervical cancer until proven otherwise. until proven otherwise. So we first of all prove it otherwise before we can let you go. Because there are things like cervical polyp. There can even be a fibroid actually trying to come out, and then there's blood. So that's what we call differentials. So the point now is that we don't even want it to get to the point of cervical cancer. We don't want it to get to that point because the
Okay.
disease has a pre-malignant stage, meaning that you can actually pick it up before it becomes cancerous. And that means that women have to avail themselves for screening. So by screening, we usually scrape on the cervix and look at it. We call it cervical smear. Then we look at the scale. So when the cells start looking suspicious, then we start paying attention and start to give treatments which can actually give a cure. So that means the progress has started. So it usually starts from that level. So if we don't catch it at that level, that means the next time we are going to see the woman is at the stage of cervical cancer. And unfortunately, that is the problem of, as I have said, low and middle income countries in the world today. Do you understand? So that is the outcry for now the vaccine. Because the vaccine coming in, I think I'm going very fast. The vaccine coming in now is that we now want to ensure that we even pick it up or prevent it before it becomes a pre-malignant. Do you understand? Because we have found out that human papilloma virus is the cause, 9% of time, is the cause of cervical cancer. So if we can deal with the virus, then it's most likely we can get rid of cervical cancer.
Yes. So in a lot of the posts that you have made over time and a lot of the conversations that you have had, at different points in time that I have picked and I have seen or heard, you have been very aggressive when it comes to the issue of this vaccination.
Yeah.
You seem to get a bit agitated that people are not taking advantage of, that vaccination simply because your opinion is that this is something that can stop this in its track from the get-go.
Yes.
Why do you think people are resisting going for this vaccination? Is it a cultural thing? Is it what exactly? Is it ignorance? Why? Why are they not aggressively trying to protect themselves?
Yes. Well, I think it's a fallout of what happened with COVID.
Okay.
I think that is actually the major problem. Then others go on with ignorance. So basically, when we talk about the COVID, it's a lot of distrust in the process of COVID and COVID vaccine and the likes. People that had vaccines still had COVID, some still died. In fact, the disease COVID, some people don't believe it anymore. Some people think that it was just some form of government or some form of prank, or somebody wants to enrich himself, and all that. People lost a lot that period. And you cannot imagine how much loss. You can't quantify it, especially in the low middle countries at that time. The whole place was shut down and businesses were shut down. So people lost a lot. And even up till now, some people are still trying to get back to their feet. And then somebody comes from somewhere, there's another vaccine in the corner. Meanwhile, this vaccine has even been before COVID. It has been before COVID, yes. My daughter is 16 years old now. That means I gave her the vaccine when she was about 12, 11 thereabouts. That means that's about around the period of COVID, before it was noisy. So it has been around. The vaccine has been very much around, So it was now left to private. Those people have heard about it, who are interested in it. They come forward, they pay for it, and they get their children vaccinated, or even they themselves, the women, get vaccinated. So now the government now wanted to embrace, because cervical cancer is now becoming a public health issue. Yes, because in the developed countries, it's almost getting to the point of eradication. In fact, the target of WHO is that we have something we call 1990. That means 1990. By 2030, 90% of people have been vaccinated. 90% of people have been screened. Then 90% of people are also receiving care from having cervical cancer. 90%. That means with them of the world. That's what we're saying. That means especially focus on the low-income country. And it's because it's quite a challenge to manage it, quite expensive and all that. But if we cannot achieve 100% all over the world, at least in the low middle income country, we should be able to achieve 90% of all of these things I've said. So if we are talking about vaccination 90%, that means there's awareness. People are
Yeah.
coming forward. It's just like normal childhood vaccination. Everybody knows now that as soon as I deliver, the next thing is that my baby has to be immunized. You even get to the point that, sorry, don't touch my baby. My baby has not been vaccinated. You don't want to go visiting a mother in the hospital that just delivered. Things like that, or even going to their home that I just been vaccinated, you can't carry. It's all these kind of things that cause victims of quarrel in families. So people
Yeah.
have come to terms with that. So that's exactly the same thing we want to do with HPV vaccination. It's only that the time for vaccination, the age is older, from the age of 9 years. We'll get to that and all that. So that's the rich thing. That it has become a public health issue and it has to be handled. But unfortunately, people are not knowledgeable enough. When you told me also as well that you are just getting to know that HPV is sexually transmitted. So that's where the awareness we want to start it from. Let people even know about the virus. The virus has been with us a long time, a
Yeah.
very, very long time. It's just that from research, we've been able to pinpoint on the fact that this virus is the cause of cervical cancer. It has other cancers that is also causing. It causes vaginal cancer, vulvar cancer. Those are cancers of the private part. Even oral cancer. Mouth. Let me put it as mouth cancer, because those are the places it likes to be. That virus. The virus likes to be situated in rough places of the body: the mouth, the vagina, the cervix, and also the penis. But as I said when we're opening, that cervical cancer tends to be the commonest cancer, fourth commonest cancer in the world. But I must let you know that it's the second commonest female cancer in Nigeria, next to breast
In
cancer.
a lot of low and middle income countries, like we keep saying.
Exactly. Yes.
So
Yes.
now,
if we have been dealing with breast cancer, that is the first. So we should be able to deal with cervical cancer too. So that's the issue. So I've talked about the COVID vaccine and its issues. I talked about ignorance. Then poverty is another thing. I told you before that it was being bought, and we had to do out of pocket payment for it. So people were not coming out for it. So there's no way they will even know. When they know, they are not interested and all of that. So those are the three things I can actually bring out for them.
okay, so when we talk of cervical cancer, we have to look at the human papilloma virus.
Exactly.
For a lot of people, they don't even know what the human papilloma virus is. And they cannot relate the HPV, like the human papilloma virus is commonly called in the medical circles. They can't even relate it to their day-to-day lives. They do not know that this is something that can be sexually transmitted. Now, you mentioned that it could occur in several parts, most likely in the areas where, there's direct contact, common contact, which is the vagina, but it could also occur in the mouth. So when you say it could also occur in the mouth, is it a case of, if it's being sexually transmitted and it's occurring in the mouth, could it be as a result of sexual contact via the mouth? Or could it be a case of just kissing could actually transmit it?
Yes. So I'm also talking about oral sex.
Yes.
So when we have situations of HPV on the penis, because it's responsible for a lesion, a benign disease called WART.
Okay.
WART, genital wart. So anybody that has genital wart, male or female, we usually screen them for human papilloma virus, because they run the risk of having any cancer that HPV causes.
Sorry, how do they identify warts when they see warts?
So, yeah, it is, as the word is, it is waxing. What that is waxing. You just see a lesion on the skin that is raised above the skin. and the surface is rough, almost looking like it's folding on each other. Wrinkles for older age. So you just
Yes.
see it spot on the genital area. When I mean genital area, I can say private part, along the
Yes.
penile shaft, around the vulva, that's outside of the woman's private parts and all that.
Okay.
You just see it spread around, scattered. So like the wrinkled skin, and that skin is raised above the normal skin, you know. There may even
Okay.
not be any symptom, just that lesion. That's why you say, no itching, nothing. You just wonder what it is. And then obviously you come to the hospital. That is if you come to the hospital, because in this part of the
Obviously,
world,
because a lot of people, you know,
because
yeah,
it's the genital parts, you first of all want to discuss with a close friend, not just even a close friend, a friend of yours that you used to talk about all this kind of rubbish. Let me
yeah,
put it like that. That's somebody that you think that, yeah, and then the person comes up with the idea that it's nothing. Then you see that it's spreading. Then you now decide to go quietly to a chemist in this part of the world. And then obviously the man wants to sell his medication and he give you something. You keep applying, you see that it's not happening. Then you come to the hospital sometimes in the evening when you know that the crowd, you know, because it's the private part, also you want to take prayer treatment in privacy. You want to do things in privacy because it will actually mean a lot to anybody that is talking to you, or even for you to express yourself to such a person and all that. So now we don't need those kind of things anymore. And because it's a disease of secrecy as I've identified, then it keeps progressing. And before you now come out and you now start talking about maybe a cervical cancer, a vulvar cancer, or even a penile cancer. But we know that the commonest of all is this cervical cancer that we're making noise thereabouts. So its best location is around that place. You engage in oral sex, so there's a risk for that, you know. So those are the issues.
okay. So now we've seen that in, you know, the same to middle income country, there's a lot of activity when it comes to the sexual trade. So much so because quite a lot of people have dropped much further down in the financial scale. And there's this desperation to try to be able to pay their bills or whatever, or even just a case of to develop a lifestyle. So there's a lot of sexual activity, especially for young people. Now, how much of a risk do they stand by engaging in sexual activity? Is it a case of the more sexual activity they engage in, the more aware they are, or the higher the risk that they stand?
Sam, I understand what you're saying. So, unfortunately, okay, maybe first of all, I should go back to my video. And I thank you for actually saying that you noticed my aggression or probably my annoyance. Because now, the government eventually bought into the fact that we had to go into mass vaccination. A country came down and wants to give the vaccination almost, I don't know the transactions that may go on, but it's going to be getting to the citizenry free. So now, if
Okay.
you want to do that, yes. And then there's somebody in court that is now saying that you must know what is going into your body. When you that are talking, you actually benefited from childhood immunization. And when we talk about childhood immunization, we talk about yellow fever, measles, talk about
Yeah.
tuberculosis, tetanus, and you are talking, and I'm sure you have never had all those diseases, measles, just because you had those vaccinations, and which translated into immunization that time, and you are still carrying through to life. Now we are talking about the same thing, and you are now saying that people should know what should go into their body, and what power do they have to seek for alternative? So what's the work of the health world then? Is that not our own work? So to say, is that not our duty to take care of the body? Every other person has whatever they do. This is one thing that you are doing now. You are causing awareness. You are through your podcast. People are listening to you. People have to do different things to make the world one. And they are not telling people to go out and look for alternative. Where would they find the alternative? What knowledge do they have? So the point is that the vaccine is available. All you just need to do is to give consent for your children to get it. They are bringing it to the schools. They are taking it to churches, something I was so surprised. And in fact, the type of vaccine they're using is even the most expensive. The only drawback about it was that it's supposed to be 2 doses, but they ended up saying 1 dose will suffice just because of the fact that it had to go round. But then studies show that it will still be effective. And then everybody's thinking that government is up to something again. You understand? So that was my pain. So as I explained earlier, prevention, and that's a form of primary prevention, vaccination.
Yeah.
So if we can give mass vaccination, then we can even cause herd immunity. Do you understand what I mean by that? So that means that when majority is vaccinated, that even those that do not have the opportunity to be vaccinated can even then be covered, but because it's almost looking like we are eradicating HPV. So that HPV virus, that's human papilloma virus, will not be available for anybody to transmit anymore. So that even those people, the minority that will be left unvaccinated, they are also safe at the end of the day. Do you understand what I mean? So that's what we
Yeah.
call herd immunity, HERD. When you tend
Okay.
to
Herd
vaccinate,
immunity. Yeah.
yes, when you tend to vaccinate majority, then
Yeah.
few that are left, maybe because they are in suburbs or hard to reach areas, then you know that yes, you have at least covered a good area. So that's what we're talking about. So why would somebody get up and speak against that? So it
You
means that
always
we have
you always find
we have
people. You always find people who will try to test the law, and also people who also try to test medicine. So those are things that strike a balance somewhere along the line, because then it also helps to clarify gray areas that people don't necessarily understand. But that being said, is there a particular age that you become eligible for the HPV immunization? That's one. Two, is it only for women or for female?
okay. So we start vaccinating from the age of 9 years.
Right. Okay.
Yes. And we take it up to the age of 15. At least that was what this program was supposed to do. But what we say globally is you can have the vaccination if you have never been if you have not had any form of sexual intercourse.
Okay.
But for the program that was organized for the country, it was supposed to be from age 9, but it starts from age 9. And the reason is to actually cover that age of sexual development. That means that we are having people starting sex at even 10 years. If it's not deliberate, it can be from sexual violence, from rape and all the likes. So that we can have good coverage. That's why it's starting from the age of 9 and
Yes.
spanning down to the age of 15 for here. And it can go on even up to 21 if you are sure that you have not and ever had sexual intercourse. Because we know that human papilloma virus is sexually transmitted. So that is the age. And then what was the second question?
Oh, guys, is the vaccination only for women?
No,
Oh, sorry,
really, but yes,
for the female.
is for both gender. But emphasis is on the female
Yeah.
because of the issue of cervical cancer.
Okay. So they are more
And
likely
as
to
yeah,
incubate the HPV, and then
yes,
it evolves into
yeah.
cervical cancer.
And
Now,
epidemiology has allowed us to know that cervical cancer is common.
yeah.
There's still penile cancer. We have that. There's still the oral cancer, but then they are still down there. But we are talking about common cancers: breast cancer, colon cancer, lung cancer, and then cervical cancer. So they are deadly. We have numbers, and that's why cervical cancer is emphasized, and the vaccination is emphasized for the female gender.
Okay. So out of curiosity, about 18 women out of 100,000 in Nigeria, get cervical cancer. If the vaccination is for females between the ages of 9 and 16, like you said, but in some
15.
cases up to 21, what is happening to the ones that are much older? how, do they get to protect themselves if they can't get the vaccination? Why can't they get the vaccination?
So before let me give you a little bit of history. So before we found out that it was HPV that was responsible, in
Yes.
fact, when we identified that it was HPV that was responsible, it was good news kind of in the gynecological world. It was a breakthrough for us to find a cause for a cancer. That was actually a breakthrough. And when
Okay.
we even say the cause of cancer, we have not said it is 100%, 99%. So there's still a 1% that there is that can come down with cervical cancer, was not from HPV, because we
Okay.
have like NUN, Catholic sisters. You wonder, they are never supposed to have cervical cancer because they are never supposed to have sex,
Yeah.
But we can find that happening, regardless of the fact that maybe the sister is not being truthful about her life, so to say. But then we identify that there's 1% of chance that cervical cancer can come from elsewhere. But 99% of time is caused by human papillomavirus. You understand? So that was a breakthrough. So while we were dealing with it before that time, I think there was life before then, was we were basing it on screening. And if you are so much aware, the developed countries, they took it as a drive that they ensure that all their women were screening, and they pick them up at any time they come to the hospital, some form of wellness clinic, even though you have come for something else. Before you go, they were going to talk to you about screening for cervical cancer, and immediately they schedule you for a screening. And
Mm.
as soon as you get into that screening program, they update you, they call on you that you are due for your next screening. So while I was in medical school, that was what I was taught. So then what we're even talking about was ensuring that every woman who is sexually active should start screening. So you keep screening. So what I was taught then was that you keep screening at intervals up to the age of 60 years. So once you clock 60, 65 years, and all your tests have been negative throughout, it's unlikely that you're going to have cervical cancer for the rest of your life. So at that time, you can stop screening. So we're basically doing the secondary form of prevention. But still then, in this part of the world, we were only able to pick on our women when they come to the hospital pregnant. So as soon as they deliver, we now ensure that within their postnatal clinic, we'll get them screened. We'll put them into the program. Now, ask me, how many of our women are doing hospital-based deliveries? Do you
Mm.
understand? So how many women are we actually screening? Because that is the only time women feel they should come to the hospital. And men don't even think they should come to the hospital in this part of the world. Because coming to the hospital is that you are wishing yourself bad. You are wishing that you go to the hospital just because you are not sick, you are just coming to the hospital. So that was just the only likely period that we can pick our women. And women that come for family planning. How many women are coming for family planning in this part of the world? So that was the only thing that we're doing then, up until we have now had that's once we now got the true picture that HPV was the cause of, or is the cause of cervical cancer in 99% of cases. So that was what we're doing then. So that now goes down to, wow, we are only talking about young females. What happens to the other one? Because that question keeps coming up. So they are still left with screening, really. And if we find out that the screening that we're doing then, I didn't say that, was cervical smear. We call it pap smear.
Okay,
Which
yeah.
is,
That's
yes,
that's a common one that most people
yes.
would have heard of, the
And
pap smear. Yes.
yes, yes. Another reason why women also run away from it is that you have to come to the hospital. The sample has to be taken by the health experts, and it's the usual. You have to open up, all those kind of things. So you have to come to terms with that before even coming to do that. So that also was a kind of barrier as well, and all of that. So so what we now say for older women is that sorry, that screening still has to continue. But nevertheless, if you screen for human papilloma virus and you notice that your result is negative, then if you have to screen, that pap smear screening, then doing it will be longer period, because we were dealing with you doing the test, that's the pap smear, every 2 to 3 years before, or even up till now. So, but if it is negative at that point as well, it's fine. You can have the vaccine as well. The older people can have the vaccine as well. But then it is better to have done your screening and seen that the HPV is negative. You understand? Before you go ahead to have the vaccine. And you can keep up with the vaccine. At the same time, you still keep up with the screening.
Okay.
Because when we talk about sexual intercourse, it's not just the woman. You can be home with your husband, but you don't know what your husband is bringing home. Do you understand what I mean by that? So that means the screening has to continue. And it is the women that we can screen. I've not heard of screening for men. The only thing I know is that a man that comes with genital warts, when people who are HIV positive are usually prone to having so many infections because of the immunity that drops. And HPV is one of the viruses they can also pick up, you know. So those are the people that we want to also screen. So that's how it goes. So for the question was, what happens to those that are older than either 15 or 21?
Yeah.
So those group of people are assumed that they have started having sexual intercourse. So we still want to screen them directly, but we can also do HPV test. Find out if there's HPV in them. That means we can either take a blood sample or just take a swab from the vagina, which can even be done by the person herself. We'll just give you a swab stick. I don't know, maybe you've seen a swab stick before. A swab stick is a very long cotton board. A very long one.
I had that stuck down my nose a few times, during the COVID.
So the woman just yes, the woman just goes into her private and just rubs it around the vagina and brings it out. So instead of even lying down and opening up, for the screening. So once you do that HPV DNA screening and it is negative, it's fine. You can have the vaccine. If it's also negative, you need to do the next one in another 5 years. And you can even follow it through with the pap smear if you like. But the point is that the HPV has been identified, as I've said it severally, as 99% cause of cervical cancer. But that cervical smear may still stand relevant because of that 1% of which we don't know the cause.
Yeah. Exceptions to the rule, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, why is there such a long gap, as in like the 5 years between the smear tests?
Yes, because it's still about the fact that sexual intercourse cannot stop, because we say HPV is sexually transmitted. And as a married woman now, I'm talking about you are in a relationship, you are in marriage. Obviously, because you are HPV negative, I can't tell you stop having sex. So because we are still having sex, then screening has to continue. So with the HPV,
but why is the screening not? Why is the screening not?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, the screening I'm talking about now is you having HPV tests done.
Okay, so the HPV tests are done every year.
Don't know, every 5 years. Once you are negative, the next time
Yeah,
will
but
be
why
in
5 years?
period.
That's a long time. Anything can happen in 5 years.
So from research and the fact that the vaccines can cover for a sexually active individual, or not even the vaccine, I'm not even talking about the vaccine now, it's unlikely that you can have that HPV being a problem. Now, what I didn't emphasize is that we pick up HPV. I said from sexually transmitted. So you can pick it up, even by the fact that if you have just your husband or you just have a boyfriend, and all that.
Toilet infections or what?
No, not toilet infection. You have to. There's nothing like toilet infection. I'll talk about that maybe some other time.
Okay.
Yes, I don't like hearing that toilet infection. We'll talk about that another time. Yes.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say now, the HPV we clear it from our body by ourselves. As in your immunity is fantastic, good immunity. You can actually clear it off. And it's not that I'm sure every woman sexually active definitely must have HPV
At some point.
at some point. And at most points, we clear it out. Just as how you can have a cold and without using anything, it goes away. It's a
Okay.
virus. So the one we are particular about, because I have mentioned before, that HPV DNA have different types, and their types are named according to numbers. Then you have HPV 11, 16, 18. Those four are those that have been found to be virulent, that could
Okay.
result into cervical cancer. But we still have other numbers, 33, 35, 40 something, 50 something. So when you do that screening, what you are even looking for when you do that HPV screening is to identify those virulent ones. Number one, if you have at all, that's positive. Then which one do you have? You
Okay.
understand? Yes. So it's not that everybody that has HPV is going to have cervical cancer. You understand? I'm
Yeah.
trying to explain why 5 years. You get?
Okay.
So it's
So now I
really
get it
going
now.
to be useless and cumbersome. Even a serious economic burden to health, to be screening every woman every year,
Every year. Okay.
because we can clear it off. So 5 years, good time. You have it. What type do you have? You have to do further screening. The other screening method, I talked about the pap smear. There's even colposcopy, and all that.
I've never heard that one before.
Yes.
Colposcopy. What is colposcopy? Medical field. Wow. What is colposcopy?
So colposcopy is just using some sort of aid, just like your glasses you're wearing on. It's
Yes.
aiding you to be able to
Yep.
see
Yeah.
clearly. So this
Yeah.
time around is in a form of scope, aiding our eyes to be able to see the cervix clearly, almost not cellular level, I mean as a tissue, to identify if that area is suspicious, that something is happening there.
Ah, right.
So
Okay.
once
So
we look at it,
you're able to
yeah, that process,
you're,
there's
you're able to see it on a
a
microscopic level.
yeah, so the
Okay.
equipment that we use is called a colposcope,
Ah,
and it
right.
comes from the Latin name for the cervix, corpus.
Ah, right. Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so with
Okay.
that colposcope, we'll be able to look into the cervix, say a suspicious area. In fact, if you look at it unaided, the place may look very healthy, but with that scope, it will make you identify a suspicious area, and that area you can now take a tissue from it before you now send it to the pathologist, who will now tell you, oh, what you saw was just rubbish. It's just some slight infection. Give some antibiotics. Or what? The cells are not good. This is cancer. It's about to start. And when
Okay.
we can pick at that level, that means at that point, we can even do some minor treatments, which may not warrant a major one like removing the uterus.
Okay.
Pulling the place, we call it thermal ablation, or excising off the place. That means cutting off that area. Mm?
Yeah.
So, and that can just be the end. The only thing that you now be doing is just a follow-up care. We don't continue to follow you up by those screening. And once we pick you up again, we give. And once we find out that you don't even need your uterus again, it gets a certain point in a woman's life that the uterus is useless. Do you know that?
I've never heard that before.
What are you doing with your uterus when you are finished having all the kids? What else? What's it doing? You're just menstruating for fun.
Well,
Seriously.
I don't want to go into that because there's a whole massive topic around the issue of childbirth. Who should have children? Who should not have children? What are the
Yeah, so
risks
now what I'm
associated with
emphasizing is
all that? Yeah.
you have completed your family size. You've
Yeah.
had a boy, a girl, 2 boys, 3 girls, 300. You have made up your mind in your mind that you're not
That you're
having
not
kids
having kids
again.
and yeah.
So that organ has become useless. Then the man will be wondering, are you saying that for not have sex with my wife again, she will not enjoy sex again? No, no. What brings about sex is the vagina, basically. The vagina is not part of the uterus. The vagina is still intact. So for the health sake, so we remove
Okay, so
we remove the uterus.
let me ask this, because when you talk about the uterus and all of that, there's something that always comes to mind. So for quite a few people, when you talk of the female reproductive system and all that, one of the most common issues that people talk about is fibroids. Is there any correlation between the HPV and fibroids?
No,
Absolutely not.
no. At least for
Okay,
now, up to
for
this
now.
time that we're talking, there's nothing
Okay,
about HPV and virus.
so
Fibroids, sorry.
and fibroids. So a woman who has fibroids and has HPV at the same time, the HPV cannot exacerbate the fibroids, as in terms of making them
No,
larger or
at all.
multiplying, because
So,
fibroids seem to be a very common phenomena when it comes to, you know,
black
black
women
women particularly, and it's been the cause of different types of issues
issues. Yes, just living out.
between couples, and all that. So that's why I would have loved to know, and that was why I was asking that question, if there was a relationship between the two. So for HPV, how does it affect conception and all of that? Does it affect conception in any way?
Yes, HPV has nothing to do with fertility.
Okay. All right.
Has nothing to do with fibroid.
Mm.
The only thing that we're talking about and making us about HPV for in the reproductive health talk now is that we have found out is the cause of cervical cancer.
Cancer. Okay.
Yes.
So
And cervical cancer,
can a pregnant woman have complications from HPV? From HPV?
no, what you say, can a pregnant woman have complications from cervical cancer?
Okay. So
Do you
the
understand?
HPV has not evolved into cervical cancer. There is no
It's no
risk.
problem. The same way I was trying to explain it with the vaccination and then the
Okay.
duration.
Okay.
I can go and test now. I can go for my test and they tell me I'm positive for HPV and I do
Okay.
nothing about it. And I go back and test in another months or years and I'm negative. So it's like
Okay.
HIV that when they are positive, they are forever positive
Okay.
because I can clear it out. So the one we are particular about is keep screening because we don't know that type that you can have of the
Yes.
HPV that will stay in the body that is not being cleared out and eventually becomes a nuisance, now causing HPV, now causing cancer. You
Right.
understand?
Okay.
So that's the
So
essence of screening, that's the essence of vaccination and the likes. So the one we are fighting is against cervical.
okay. So we have identified that HPV can be sexually transmitted. Are there any other
Yeah.
ways that a woman can come up with HPV?
Yes. Well, majorly is sexually transmitted, but I've read that you could also pick it up on beddings. Mm.
Okay.
So yes, beddings maybe when some sort of social people have already happened, there is some such heat or lie on such heat. So to say, I mean bed sheet.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely.
So those are very rare. Those will be
Yes,
very rare occurrences. So it
yes,
is majorly
very well.
sexually
So we
transmitted.
exactly.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, the audio quality has dropped, but it's fine. Let's go ahead. Okay. So yeah, new research comes up every day. Okay. So we've been talking about cervical cancer basically, and so the risk that it poses to the female gender generally. It is something that a lot of women need to take cognizance of, and you cannot afford to exhibit, any form of ignorance when it comes to this issue of the correlation between HPV and cervical cancer. Women need to do screening very consistently. Now, we've just heard that in a country like Nigeria, for instance, now there's actually vaccinations, which is actually free. But still, quite a lot of people are still not taking it. They're still wary, probably because, like Dr. Dupe just said, the effects of the COVID vaccinations and the doubts that people have developed when it comes to infections, when it comes to viruses and all that kind of stuff. But the good part is people are beginning to talk about it. So if people are beginning to talk about it, then that means that some awareness will come somewhere along the line. So for somebody like, Dr. Dupe, for instance, who has been talking to us about this, I'm sure quite a few people will have some questions and all of that. You can put whatever questions you have in the comment section. But you can also go and follow Dr. Dupe on Dupsy the Gynae on Instagram, Facebook. Are you on TikTok as well? Okay, so you can also check out. Okay, so we'll put our handles in the description and all that for you to see, so you can actually pick that up, and then you can actually follow her if you need to be getting regular updates and regular information on anything to do with obstetrics or gynecology. Because, like I said, she's a consultant, and I've heard some of the brilliant things that she's talked about. But it was her passion for this vaccination for HPV against cervical cancer, basically, that made me say, what, we have to have a conversation with her. Now, she has tried quite a bit, to enlighten us around this issue. And I'm glad that, I've heard as much as I've heard, because I've learned quite a lot today. And for those of you who are parents, who, if you live in Nigeria, or if you have relations in Nigeria, my suggestion will be to reach out to your family and ask them if they've got, the vaccinations. If they haven't got the vaccination, I think it's about time that you have that conversation to find out how you can deal with it. Because like she said, it's just like getting the yellow fever, measles, etc. vaccination. You can do your own research. You can get a second opinion, which is, the best thing to do, in my opinion. You don't have to rely on what she has said. Well, you're probably going to come back to the same thing to realize that what she has said to what you actually need. So when it comes to health issues, the best thing is take action. Don't sit back. Don't wait, for things to escalate before you now start trying to solve the problem. Because at the end of the day, you find out that you probably have left it for too late. Dr. Dupe, thank you so much for taking that time to join us and to explain, all this about cervical cancer, the HPV and all that. My mind has been broadened. And I'm sure that there are so many other things that, I had like 1 billion questions. But I just said, what, let's focus on, the really dangerous, issue at hand that a lot of people need to hear, which you have been advocating for. Go and get the vaccination, please. Now, if you have not been following, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel as well, please, we would implore you, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, share, and put on your notification bell so that you always know when we are able to get brilliant people like Dr. Dupe onto the show to have conversations like this, and then we can all benefit by learning. We thank you very much for taking out the time to join us. You have happy holidays, and then see you in the next coming year, 2025. Amazing. Dr. Dupe, thank you so much. You have a great holiday as well. Sorry? Oh, well, yeah. So when we have conversations, we actually don't put a timeline on it because we like our guests to tell us as much as they possibly can, sharing the wealth of their knowledge. But at the same time, we also want viewers to be able to get as much value as they can from every conversation. So we don't limit you. If you can give us information that would last us for 20 years in just an hour or an hour and a half, why not? It's a lot. Oh, yeah, I'm sure you're going to see. We are still going to have you back, sometime soon, because there are so many things that women need to hear about that they don't get to hear about. So hopefully we'll be able to get on your calendar one of these days again and bring you back on. Thank you so much. You have a great holiday.